On Tuesday, MilliporeSigma, the life science subsidiary of U.S.-based pharmaceutical giant Merck and Canada life science business of Merck in Germany, announced that they had signed an agreement with Innovative Biotech to design the manufacturing process for the first vaccine production plant in Nigeria. The collaboration is part of the West African Pandemic Readiness Program, which aims to localize vaccine development in African nations. The first phase of this integrated partnership will focus on designing and finish facility, while the second phase will focus on enabling continuous vaccine manufacturing. Well, according to Simon Agwale, CEO of Innovative Biotech, by leveraging Merck's facility design expertise, the partners will be able to build the first vaccine production facility in Nigeria and manufacture high-quality and affordable vaccines locally. Now joining us from his base in Baltimore, Maryland, to enlighten us on the importance of this facility, how much this collaboration is expected to cost, and when to expect the rollout of vaccines to combat the coronavirus pandemic, is Dr. Simon Agwale. Dr. Agwale is a virologist and has worked on HIV vaccine development in the U.S. and Africa. Welcome to the morning show, and good morning, Mr. Simon.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's talk about this agreement. You know, it's such a huge innovation at this point, given the nature of the pandemic in Africa and given that there is no manufacturing plant in Nigeria. Now, which particular vaccine will be procured? And are there any talks with the Federal Ministry of Health in terms of collaboration at this point?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Yes, of course, you can't do a project of this magnitude without the involvement of your home country. So this is a project that we have been doing for the past 15 years. We've made HIV vaccines, Ebola, Lassa vaccines, and so on. But COVID catalyzed the whole thing because it's a pandemic. It affects everybody. So there's this massive interest in pushing this forward, and then we capitalize on that to make sure that we build the vaccine manufacturing facility of the 21st century in Nigeria. Now, for you to actualize this, basically you have to work with the big players in the game. As you know, Merck virtually is the leading life science company in the world. Virtually all the vaccine players, all the manufacturers depend on Merck for the supply of their production materials. So we are confident and very happy to sign an agreement with this company and to bring the vaccine manufacturing capability of the 21st century to Nigeria. Now, this is the only, or let me say, one of the few manufacturing capability on the continent that we take manufacturing from the research and development all the way to the drug substance manufacturing and then to fill and finish. So Nigeria is coming late, but they're coming with the best solutions.
Okay, Dr. Agwale, how soon will this project take off? Will it be early enough to be part of provision of coronavirus vaccine? And the other angle of my question, because in the course of your earlier statement, you mentioned that your organization have worked on Lassa fever, Ebola, and HIV vaccines. I will also want to know the progress in these areas, these other three ailments you mentioned.
Yes, we have two strategies. the first strategy is to build a factory. The second strategy is to make COVID vaccine available as quickly as possible. Now, since the factory is not ready yet in Nigeria, so what we have decided to do is to work with contract manufacturers in the U.S. That's virtually what everybody is doing. Johnson & Johnson, everybody, Moderna, everybody is using the contract manufacturers to produce the vaccines. So we don't want that to delay because it takes time for the actual facility to be built. The interesting thing about working with Merck is that they go through the entire process. Once you have your technology, which we do have, which is called the viral live particle technology, is a technology that was used to make hepatitis B vaccine and HPV vaccine. Now, if you look at the current vaccines that are being used, the Moderna mRNA, the Pfizer mRNA, Johnson & Johnson viral vector vaccines, I mean, you can see that, you have to take a booster dose, of course, in 6 months. They did great work. Without those vaccines, only God knows what will have happened today. But if you look at the viral live particle that has been used for 50 years in the case of hepatitis B vaccine and over 2 decades for HPV vaccine, if you take 1, 2, 3 doses of the vaccines, potentially, based on available data, 13 years after those immunizations, those people are still protected, and there's no evidence of decay. That's vaccine. So the technology that we're using to make the COVID vaccine is a technology that has been well established and used to make 2 very important and very successful vaccines, which is the hepatitis B vaccine and then the HPV vaccine. So we're confident that we'll have a product that is going to overcome the current variant and then the emerging variant. So in terms of how soon, when are we going to make this happen? It takes time to build facilities, but like I said, we have outsourced and using contract manufacturers in the U.S. While the factory is being built, we are at the same time using contract manufacturers to produce the vaccines. We were in South Africa about 4 weeks ago to discuss with the investigators there that will do the clinical trials of our vaccines. Because animal studies show that the current vaccines, the vaccine that we made protects against the Delta variants. We have just ordered the Omicron sequence to create a pseudovirus to test the vaccines that we have to see whether it will neutralize or not. If it does not neutralize, we just incorporate the Omicron variant to make it a trivalent vaccine.
All right, Dr. Simon Agwale, Rufai here. Good to see you finally and talk to you again. I just want to ask, so what technology are we deploying? Where is the plant going to be built in Nigeria? Also, where is the money going to come from? Is it going to be sort of like counterpart funding? Will the federal government put some money into this with Merck? And what is the assurance of quality control as regards this? And what is the end game? Will it be shipped to other parts of the country? Because a country like Egypt is doing fill and finish. Other parts of Africa, because a country like Egypt is doing fill and finish, but they can't sell those vaccines out now because they've not gotten the say-so from World Health Organization. So they're churning out the vaccines, but it can only be used within Egypt as we speak.
Yeah, good question. Let me start from the last question. Most of the initiatives in Africa, and that is we are worried about that, are focused on the downstream process, which is fill and finish. So they get the bulk product from other companies and then do fill finish in the nation. So you will eventually end up with fill finish facilities all over Africa without a drug substance, to fill. So we are trying to solve that problem because based on African CDC projections and goal, we're supposed to produce 60% of all our vaccines on the continent by 2040. And then we are expected to produce at least 1.5 to 1.7 billion doses of the vaccines on the continent. So if you look at the initiatives that are currently ongoing, they are basically based on fill-finish sites, getting the drug substance elsewhere. So that is not going to solve our problem. And that was why we took this approach to start from the research and development to producing the drug substance and eventually the fill-finish. So having that in mind and then using the platform and technology that we have, which is the virus-like particle, will be in a position not only to give Nigerians the best vaccines, but again, will be in a position to partner with other manufacturers around the world to give them the drug substance so that they can fill-finish for those regions. So we are very happy. Nigeria is coming very late, but based on what I've described, is going to be one of the leaders to provide solutions to this pandemic and imagine pandemics.
I asked, is FG giving you any money? That was part of my question. Is FG giving you any money?
Well, I mean, the key thing is, the way we have structured this is that we have initial commitment from two companies, KKM here in the U.S. and Green Capital in South Africa. So the funds that we are having from these two organizations will help us to produce the clinical grade, and the funding is both pre-order. They are buying the vaccines in advance, and that was how we got this COVID vaccine within a year. So they are taking the risk, investing because they like the technology. They want to be in front of the line. If you don't do that, you lose out, and that's why Africa is losing out. If you want, you have to take the risk, pay for the vaccines in advance. Let me tell you what will happen. So these two companies, the U.S. company, South Africa, that's given us the resources to move this product to clinical trials. Once the vaccine clinical trial is successful, they will be the first in line to get the product. So the FG, of course, we're in discussion with them. They've indicated interest to also pre-order, and then I don't want to go into those details, but I hope that we'll be able to conclude that, and then Nigeria will be among the first, countries that will benefit from this novel technology.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that you went to South Africa, to meet with the production companies there. Like Rufai had said before, countries like Senegal, Egypt, Morocco, are some of those countries that have successfully secured the rights to produce these vaccines. Now, Senegal actually secured the patent from Belgian biotech group Universal, right, to produce the vaccines from next year. And your goal is to produce the drug substance. Now, where do you envisage the biggest challenge for the smooth running of distribution across the African continent when this rollout starts?
The good thing about our initiative is that we're not depending on anybody. We have our technology, we're co-developing with our partners, we have absolute control of the production process. And this is not only for COVID. Like I said, we have made other vaccines in the past, which we still have because we didn't have the resources to move those forward. HIV, Ebola, Lassa. Now, the platform as you know, the malaria vaccine that we have today that met WHO goal of maybe 75% is based on the platform technology that we have, which is the virus-like particle. So you see that the facility built is not, of course, initially we produced enough doses for, COVID vaccine, and the flexibility of the facility. Like I said, the current vaccine that we have, we use the beta variant, the delta variant, and we are able to neutralize these viruses. And we were supposed to have commenced the clinical trials in South Africa by end of the year, but because Omicron came in, so now we are testing in the next week or two. We have the data to see whether the vaccines that we made against the Delta will neutralize against the Omicron. If it does not, the flexibility of the technology that we have will allow us to make Omicron specific vaccines and incorporate it into what we have and make it a trivalent, that is the Beta, Delta, Omicron trivalent vaccine that will block or neutralize against these variants and possibly emerging variants.
Okay, you initially I mentioned what you have done on Lassa fever, Ebola, and HIV. Why are we not having those vaccines available? You even worked on malaria, which is a big problem in Africa and Nigeria. Those vaccines, why are they not available to Africans?
Well, the fact of that's why we want to have that factory on the continent that will give us the flexibility to solve our problems. If you don't have a disease that is pandemic that affects the West, the resources will be limited for you to move forward. Unfortunately, our leaders on the continent don't understand that, because we have to piggyback on COVID, to build this factory, and the factory will allow us to move these candidate vaccines that we have developed over the years, to clinical trials and eventual, commercialization to solve our problems. That's how this game is. There's nothing you can do about it. This is how it is. Until our leaders begin to see that this is our problem, and then you bring all the resources that are needed to make this happen, and then we solve our problems. Until that happens, we have to capitalize on what is global, which is now the COVID, to build a facility, and then we can use, because the interesting thing is that once you have the facility, you can use that facility to develop and produce vaccines of your interest.
I don't want to say COVID is not a blessing to Africans for us to solve diseases that are peculiar to Africa.
I think it's a blessing, but you can't say that it's bad news. But you have to be possible and look at the good side of COVID. That without COVID, Africa will not be sitting down. I was in Rwanda a week ago, just last week, where expanding vaccine manufacturing happened by the African CDC, and without COVID, you wouldn't have had that meeting. So I think this is the right time for us to capitalize on the momentum that has been created to build our facilities, and then we can use these facilities to solve our problems.
Okay, so two things. Number one will be, where will Nigerian scientists play in all of this? Because I would like to see this being done and a lot of Nigerian scientists being part of it. And secondly, you've been able to secure some level of funding for this, but there's been another Nigerian scientist, Professor Happy, that has worked extensively. He's got a vaccine candidate. what advice can you give as regards securing funding? You've been able to accelerate this because, you have the contact, you're able to talk to the big partners and the likes, but we'll have others too that are struggling to secure that funding to be able to put more vaccine candidates in the party here.
This game, you have to look at the two projects. Professor Happy is my friend. You have to look at research, and then you have to look at product development. No investor who put his money in research, because how are they going to recoup their investment? So we are translating the R&D into products, and that's why it becomes appealing to investors. So the type of project that API, NIMA, NIPRIT are doing are supposed to be funded first by the governments by the government of Nigeria. If you look at South Africa, see the kind of data that is coming out. It's all funded by the South African government. So if you give them that initial support, they will be in a position, get the necessary equipment, train the staff, and so on, and they will be positioned to compete for international funding. I review grants for various organizations around the world. You hardly see any grant coming from Nigeria because you can't compete. You have to be in a position to compete. And to do that, your national government, your government has to support you initially to generate some data, get some equipment, get some platform, and then publish some data, and then you'll be able to compete globally. Nobody's at the global scale looking for, a quota system. No, it doesn't work that way. Now, who are the best people that will make this happen? That's the question. And to do that, the national government, and I still emphasize that the government needs to support NIMA and NIPRIT heavily. We have the technical know-how, we have the platform to help these institutions to bring them to international standards, but the government has to provide the necessary resources. We're not saying give us company the resources. Company have other sources. So, if you have a good project as a company, you always attract funding, like what you read early on. But we need those national, because the companies cannot begin to do what the national institutions are supposed to do. For example, what strains, what variants are emerging, what are the predominant variants in the country, and so on. It's not the responsibility of the company to do that. It's the responsibility of the NCDC, the NIMA, the NIPRI to do that. So you tell us, this is the problem, this is the predominant subtype. Then the company will now design vaccines against that to prevent that. The company can't do everything. So I'm calling for Nigerian government to support those, these three institutions, NCDC, NIMA, NIPRI. In terms of technical support, we can mobilize that here to support these three institutions.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Simon Agwale, for your time this morning.